Welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is professional rock climber and Colorado native Chelsea Rude. Chelsea has climbed all over the world from a very young age. She's competed at the highest levels with Team USA rock climbing, and more importantly, is an awesome person. I really enjoyed sitting down with Chelsea and getting to know her today. This is the first time we had met, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Sorry about that. Chelsea, thank you so much for coming in. We actually started the podcast a few minutes ago, but we never hit record. So we're going to play back what we talked about for about 5 minutes here or whatever. But we were just getting into you're a professional rock climber. We started talking about your background. So I'm sorry. Can you go back through that?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
I was born in Gunnison, lived in Boulder when I was super small. My parents, would see the climbers in El Dorado Canyon and Boulder Canyon, and definitely never tried climbing at that point and definitely thought that they were insane. And then if we just kind of fast forward 11 or so years, we were living in Georgia. My dad saw an article in the newspaper for a local rock climbing gym, and he wanted to go try it just because he had literally never tried it, and was trying to convince me to go with him for like a month before I finally was like, okay, I'll go with you just so you leave me alone. And fell in love with it that first day. I think we were climbing for about 6 hours. Did not want to leave, but I had school the next day, so my dad literally drug me out of the climbing gym. And
see, we're getting a better story now. We didn't get that part at the beginning, right? Okay,
yes.
So we're warmed up now, people.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this is our second go. So.
Yep. Just by my blonde little pigtail, it's just like, come on, we gotta go. Your mom's gonna be mad at me for keeping you out so late. And it was like an hour ride home that night, and I couldn't shut up about how much fun I just had, and literally just kept. I've been climbing ever since. And you've just been doing it since,
right? Yeah. So we kind of got into that a little bit. Why rock climbing? Why that avenue? Were you playing any other sports prior to that? Were you a soccer player, dance, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely tried dance a few times. I tried gymnastics, was terrible at it. Like, inherently, I was not a strong child, I tried.
I was a strong child. I was just always a big kid. So,
yeah,
big kids in gymnastics don't really work that well.
Right? Yeah. I didn't have any strength, or I didn't know, I had no body awareness, I think, as a kid. But I did play tennis and liked it, but it wasn't anything that was like, oh, I can't wait to go back and play tennis and hit that ball.
Meanwhile, you're getting drug off the rock climbing wall at the gym, right?
Day one, could barely make it to the top of the wall, and I just, something clicked for me. I've never turned back.
It's crazy. We were talking about it. My daughter's a ballerina. She's 10 years old, super flexible. My kids took up rock climbing super fast, right? She's super competitive with her brother. But one of the things they did at the gym is they put a dog squeak toy at the top of the wall. So every kid was like, oh, I gotta squeak the horn, right?
Yeah. That's rad.
So yeah, pretty rad little idea there for kids to entice them.
Yep.
It's awesome. Fortunately we have some spots super close to us, and it's become so popular now too, right? There's so many rock climbing gyms out there.
So many. It's actually one of the fastest growing sports in our country.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, It's a great workout. I've even gone in and just, a little bit, the simple routes or routes, whatever you call them. Right?
Yeah. Tomato.
Right? But yeah, no, there's so many of them, and I urge anybody to go in and check them out. It's a lot of fun. You don't have to have a ton of experience.
Or any.
And it's a great family sport, yeah.
Yeah, climbing is really cool. It is a full body workout. It's definitely a sport that is challenging mentally as well. Even once you're established in the sport, it is at least 60% mental, which is really cool. But even further than that, they're starting to use climbing as therapy for stroke patients.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because climbing really uses both sides of our brain. So it helps these patients create connections again through both sides of their brain. And then,
is there an age limit, like that they're like, okay, you've had a stroke, you're 80 years old, you can't get on the rock wall, or is there?
I mean, I don't think that there's really an age limit. Like, I know plenty, well, not plenty, but I know of 80-year-olds who still climb and crush.
That's awesome.
So I think it probably
We got to get one of those in. Make a note of that, Marissa.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Noted.
But yeah, I don't know. Oh, the other thing too is they're starting to use climbing as forms of therapy for people. So maybe you've heard of like wilderness therapy.
Yeah,
like
big
people
time.
are starting to create practices where it's like rock climbing therapy with their therapist. So it's like really special.
It's kind of one of those sports to me, and I don't know because I'm not a professional rock climber, and I've never actually climbed other than like some minor bouldering. I haven't really done any outdoor climbing. Most of the climbing that I've done that's over like 20, 30 feet has either been in a rock and roll arena because I come from like a rigging background, or it's been on a synthetic wall, or just bouldering a little bit. But it's one of those things like when you're doing something like that where all your focus is on that. Like I'm a big I do a couple different things. Riding motorcycles is one, dirt bikes. You can only focus on that while you're doing it. You can't worry about like, did I pay my mortgage? Is the car payment paid? Like all those other things just kind of get blocked out because you have to focus on what you're doing, or there might be serious consequences. And I also shoot archery, and that's kind of the same thing. To pull off like the perfect shot, you have to be super concentrated.
Yeah, climbing is the same way. And not necessarily because there's like risks for injury or anything, but if you are like, if your goal is the top, which not everyone has the goal of getting to the top, it's just a really cool way to just like bring your focus in and like be in touch with your body. Like you need to be aware of what your feet are doing, be aware of obviously what your hands are doing, which is easier because they're kind of right in front of your face. And then kind of know what's going on around you, you know, and not panic and not get scared and not be overconfident and all of these things.
Right. So it's kind of that Zen, like almost that perfect state that you got to be in, right?
Yeah. It's like you have this huge area where everything can be, but you're just trying to find this thin line in that huge
That's
area.
cool. I've never really thought about it that way. That's interesting. That's a cool way to look at it. You know, I don't know much about your background. Are you a Colorado native? Did you grow up here in Colorado, or?
I was born in Gunnison, but I did not grow up here. I moved back here about 12 years ago, but I am a
Still rocking that native bumper sticker, though?
Yes, I was going to say. I'm a sixth-generation Coloradian.
Awesome. There's not very many of us around. I am, too. My family actually homesteaded part of Evergreen. So,
oh, cool.
And I moved away, though. I left for 20 years, you know, at 18 or 19.
Yeah.
This wasn't the spot I wanted to be. I wanted to be traveling the world, so I went and did that. And then as soon as I had kids, I was like, wait a minute, where do I want them to grow up? And it was like, it all came full circle.
Yeah,
so here I am
Colorado's
now.
such a special place.
Yeah. And Gunnison is amazing. The whole Black Canyon, that whole area is awesome. Fortunate enough, I had a friend that grew up there, super close friend, and we go fishing there. Shout out to Kyle. Yeah, I'm sure he's probably listening to this.
You know, I've never climbed in the Black Canyon.
Really?
Yeah, I want to, but I'm a little hesitant. I'm really allergic to poison ivy. And I've heard that the poison ivy in there is just totally absurd, and I'm just scared.
Right.
Yeah.
So like an extra, like above and beyond, you're allergic on top of what the normal person would get from poison ivy then, yeah?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Have you had it before?
Oh, yeah.
Like life-threatening type situation, or?
No, I think the only time it would be life-threatening for me is if I were to inhale it. So if people were burning something that had poison ivy in it and I inhaled it, at least that's what my doctor said.
Oh, okay.
But I literally have had it like in my eye, on the side of my face, and everywhere else.
It's miserable just to have regularly. I can't imagine having a heightened allergic reaction to it.
I know.
Can't be good.
Know. It's not fun.
So what do they do for that? Do you have...
I have to take prednisone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which then makes me insane.
Yeah.
So it's not pretty.
Yeah. All those side effects at the end of it, right? That's what you start going through.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Exactly.
So, why rock climbing? Was that was the sport that drove you and you've continued to do it? I mean, you've done it at a high level for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the first day that I went climbing with my dad, I loved it. Like something definitely just clicked. And then I started competing literally within my first month of climbing and also joined a youth climbing team. And I found success in that first competition. I won. And I think no matter how old you are, like if you win something, you're like, hell yeah, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so so then I turned into a competitive rock climber, which was the majority of my career. I just loved it.
And your parents, were they supportive the whole time, or was there a time like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to Yosemite, and they were like, don't go, or anything like that? Or
growing up, they were very supportive. Obviously, if I wasn't doing great in school or got in trouble, climbing was the thing that they took away from me. But yeah, they were super supportive. I think probably until I got a little bit older, and then they were like, Chelsea, you really need to settle down and get a real job, and and that just never ever resonated with me. But yeah, they were pretty supportive for sure.
That's great. What's the best part about being a professional rock climber? I mean, do you have some like standout moments like where you were competing at a high level and it was just like, this is the pinnacle of it all? Or
I can't even tell you what the pinnacle of it is. Maybe I just haven't reached it yet. Definitely had some like really fucking awesome moments in competition climbing. But then as I started to like wean out of competition, like I'm an Adidas athlete, they were so awesome and are awesome. And they just kind of pivoted with me and were like, go climb outside, go like, reach your potential out there. And definitely have pushed my limits outside. I don't think I've like reached that like personal potential yet, but they're super supportive. I'm also a coach and they have been super supportive of that. And I think they really like that avenue of, one of their athletes like really giving forward to the community in that way, especially a community
great.
that's
it's
growing.
awesome when you have great companies that back you up.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be able to be doing what we do here if we didn't have the companies backing us right now. So
right.
I feel super fortunate on that end of it. So
yeah.
Shout out to all those people.
I know.
So rock climbing competitions, are they typically, I've never really followed the sport that heavily. Is that an all indoor, all synthetic, or are there outdoor competitions as well?
There are outdoor competitions, but not at a like regional, divisional, national, international, World Cup level. Just because when you go climbing outside, like you can climb something one year or you can go back however many days and like really dial in the process or in the beta. So then if it were like a competition style, like you'd have an advantage over somebody else who doesn't climb in that area. So most of these competitions, especially like the world ranking or national ranking stuff, is all on artificial walls. Because then route setters...
It puts it on an even playing field a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And the reason why is because it's just like a blank wall. These route setters come in and they set brand new routes or routes at a certain grade. And so nobody has ever seen them before. No one has ever been on it before. And then you really get to test like the physical and mental ability of all of the athletes on a fair playing ground.
And you've competed on a world level, right? So you're versing other countries and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously America kicks ass, but I'm sure the French do probably, right? Just because of where they live. I mean, you have the Alps, the Swiss are probably really good at it. Some of the Italians, I would imagine, right?
I mean, to be honest, the U.S. climbing competition scene has been behind the European competition scene. Like, they are so good. And the reason why they've been able to be so good, like these individual countries, is because they usually get government support for their national team to train and be able to travel to these competitions. And their training facilities actually have been better for much longer than ours have. It is just
a lot of the climbing companies are based in Europe, right? Like Petzl and like some of those other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just think they have more history in climbing and competition climbing specifically than we do. But we are definitely catching up. Like, now climbing is going to be in the Olympics this summer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. And our national governing body for competition climbing has really stepped up their support for the national team. So things are definitely changing, and we definitely have strong people in this country for sure. That's never been, something that we didn't have.
Are you in? That was my next question. Are you involved at the Olympic level as a coach, or are you competing, or planning on trying to?
Nope.
Okay.
And in fact, it was never anything. Had it been that climbing entered the Olympics earlier, I would have been all over that. But it's not. This is going to be the first year that it is going to be in the Olympics. And yeah, I just don't compete anymore. Like, I literally do not have the drive to go into the gym and train that many hours, X amount of days per week. Like, I've been there, I've done it, and like, I just don't, I get bored.
Yeah. I can imagine that gets rigorous, especially once you've done it for so many years. How many years have you been climbing now?
23.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and I competed.
It's hard on the body too, right?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard on the body for sure. But I think even still, like I still train, but in order to do as well as I would want to do.
So on a competitive level,
on a competitive
right?
level.
Professional level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put in the hours. And like, I don't know, I'll go to the gym for 3 hours and then I'm done. Like, I don't want to be there anymore. And I think it just changes, like, the older you get, like, the more diverse your life becomes and the more, I don't know, complex it becomes versus like when you're younger and you're like, yeah, I'll go to the gym twice for 3 hours each and call it a good day, you know?
Yeah.
And I just don't want to do that with my life anymore.
So I'm sure over 23 years, you've had some super exciting moments. You've probably faced a ton of adversity too, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about those exciting moments. What, in your mind, what's the most exciting moment that you've had, you think?
Ooh, just in climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I on-sighted something at what's rated a 513C level outside.
Can you dumb that down for a dumb guy over here?
Yes.
And some of our listeners that don't know, like, go into a little bit of detail on what that means.
So there's bouldering and then there's sport climbing. Okay. And bouldering grades are like a V, number. And then sport climbing is where, like, you're climbing a lot higher, you need to use a rope, and those grades are 5 point something. So when you go to start climbing, like, you might climb a 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, but the grades gradually get harder and harder. So I think, like, the hardest route now is like 515C, which is really, really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And so 513C is like, it's definitely pretty hard. But to be able to do something that hard on your very first time without having any previous knowledge of the route is like one of the purest forms of climbing. That's called on-sighting. But being able to on-sight something that hard, like, not a lot of people have done that. And the first time that happened, I mean, I fought so hard that when I let go at the top at the anchors and was getting lowered down, like, I felt nauseous.
Really?
But it was, like, so incredible, just to, like...
I can't believe it. I mean, I totally envy what you guys do. And free climbing is a whole nother level, right? Like the Alex Honnold. Is that, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Alex Honnold. So he does solo climbing.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Like, if people haven't seen that, I think it was a Nat Geo documentary or something like that.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yep.
If you're a climber, like,
just the footage for anybody is
it takes
incredible.
a lot for my heart to drop during a film, right? Like, I've seen a lot in my career working in entertainment and working in film and stuff like that. But that literally made my heart drop watching him climb some of that. And you don't know if he's going to live or die. Like,
yeah.
They definitely played the Hollywood aspect into it a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, to keep you on the edge of your seat. But that is an amazing documentary.
It is.
And it made me respect rock climbing even that much more. So what's the furthest you can fall on a rope? Like 20, 30 feet? I mean,
I've definitely fallen like 40 or 50 feet on a rope. You can take longer falls, really. It just depends on like where you are on the route, like how tall the route is, all these things. Like I have heard of people taking 100-foot falls on a rope, but probably not much longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does that do to your body? I mean, obviously the further you fall, there's going to be more force and you're coming to almost a sudden stop, right? There's not a whole lot of stretch in the rope. I mean, there is some, but.
Yeah. So there's two types of ropes. There's a static line and then there's a dynamic line. So the static lines definitely don't have any stretch in them. So if you were to fall on that, like your body would feel it and you would not be psyched. But the static lines are the ropes that we do climb on, and they do have quite a bit of stretch, more than you would think. And so as long as your belayer, which is the person holding the other end of the rope so you don't hit the ground,
right?
It's very important. So it's partially the rope's job and partially the belayer's job to make sure that the climber has a soft landing or as soft as possible. And if both of those things are accomplished well, like it's fine. You don't even really feel any sort of like, jolt or anything.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. In the rock and roll industry, and I hate to be comparing these two because they're not even close to the same level of competitiveness, I guess, or anything like that, right? Like, it is fast paced. A lot of guys are on low sleep, but we actually have to have like a rescue plan in place if somebody falls in a harness because they can only spend so much time in a harness. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times those safety precautions, you're assuming that the person is out cold. Like maybe they got electrocuted, which is probably the most common thing that can happen in our industry.
Yeah.
In rock climbing, is there a certain amount of time like to get somebody out of their harness and to the ground before they start having problems or anything like that? Or is that...
So usually when you fall, as long as like you fell safely, like our harnesses are solid, our ropes are solid. So usually we'll just pull back up and continue climbing. Now, if you take a bad fall where like maybe you flipped upside down and you weren't wearing a helmet and you hit your head, or maybe you had a hard catch from your belayer, so you just slammed into the wall and broke your ankle or your wrist or something. It's not true that everybody has self-rescue skills or the ability to rescue one another as a partnership. So it just depends like what the scenario is. Like if you're on El Cap in Yosemite and something really bad happens, like you have to call in a helicopter to get you off.
Sure.
But if you're like...
But I mean, that happens with anything, right? It could happen with hiking a trail.
Exactly. So just as long as like... there's so many things. Right. There's so many things we could dive into here. Yeah. But yeah, typically if you just fall and like there's no consequence of that fall, you just pull back up and go climbing.
You either get lowered in or you climb back up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Totally.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Have you had any like super scary moments like that? Have you in your rock climbing encounters or anything like that? Have you ever had a moment or been there while somebody else has needed to be rescued or anything like that?
I have not, thankfully, been present when other people had to get rescued, which I am very thankful for. I am a wilderness first responder, so I would know how to handle it. Knock on wood. Yeah. But I have not been present. I've had a lot of friends who have had to get evac'd and friends that have passed away from bad falls. So it definitely happens. For me personally, I've not, again, knock on wood, had any bad falls. I had like this weird freak accident in a competition where I broke my back. Oh my God. So that happened. But otherwise, no. I've been fortunate. I would say lucky, but I don't think it's luck.
Well, you look like you got a full recovery from it. You're moving around fine in here. So.
Yeah. And it was when I was a teenager, too. So,
okay.
I was like made out of rubber.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Bones are a lot softer then, not as dense.
Yeah.
You have an amazing Instagram page.
Thanks.
Actually, Marissa, can you pull up some of those photos you were showing me earlier? We can just scroll through a few of them. But yeah, no, I love your Instagram page. I've been following you for a while now. That's how we've been communicating, actually.
Yeah.
And you have just some amazing photos. How do you get those photos? I mean, is it a drone, or do you have GoPros or something like that are?
Yeah, I don't have a drone, but some of those photos are taken off of a drone.
Okay.
Not very many of them, though. I have friends that are photographers that like will set up lines where they can take photos from above.
Awesome.
Yep. I've never actually climbed with a GoPro. So, yeah, that one.
Like this photo, that's amazing. Like,
yeah, that one.
How high are you there?
Maybe like 90 feet or so. This one was taken from a drone by Keith Ledzinski. I'm not sure if you've heard his name, but
I've heard of the name, yeah.
He's a really amazing photographer. He does a lot of work for National Geographic. He lives in Boulder. But yeah, he's
awesome.
like, I don't know.
Is he a climber himself? Because I know like some of those photographers at that level are climbers as well, yeah?
Yeah, I don't really know how much he climbs anymore, but definitely he was a climber, at least in the past, for sure. So he understands it and he knows what to do.
Perfect. And I did notice on your page, you do a little bit of ice climbing too, yeah?
Yeah, well, I did. I haven't in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how different is that from rock climbing? I mean, it's got to be huge different, right? Because you're pickaxe.
Yeah.
Is it crampons?
Crampons.
Okay.
Yep. It is. It's very different in the sense that I don't want to say it's less technical, but there's, I don't know, it's just like kind of more aggressive because, you have your axes and you're like swinging it and you're kicking your feet into the wall versus more rock climbing is definitely centered around like, if you're a good rock climber, you're definitely trying to be more efficient and delicate. Like you don't want your feet to make noises and kind of ballerina-like,
right,
if you will.
And then if you don't bury that axe far enough, right?
Yep.
So it's probably a totally different workout muscle-wise, right?
It is, too, because, like, actually swinging the axe, it takes a lot more coordination than you would think. That doesn't just happen just through rock climbing. So it's weird. Like, you get tired and, like, you actually can't swing an axe very well. Or I can't. I get kind of, like, uncoordinated. So, yeah, it's totally different. Plus, the element of the cold is totally different. Like, your hands go numb. You develop, like, what is it called? The screaming barfies.
Okay.
Which, have you heard of this?
No.
Oh, it's like
the
explain worst what that is. Feeling in the world. Basically, your hands go numb because you're climbing and your hands are above your heart. So not only is the blood kind of just like not going to your fingers, but it's really fucking cold.
Yeah.
So then you actually start to warm up over time, or maybe you get to your belay and like you get to put your hands down, and that rush of warm blood that gets to your hands just creates the most nauseating pain you could ever imagine. And, there's scales where it's like not so bad. And then there's scales where like you just want to
puke. Right, because you're going from super hot to super cold, right?
Yeah. So that's like an element of ice climbing.
I've never really thought about that. It doesn't sound like it's much fun.
It's like definitely type 2 fun.
Okay.
Suffering.
Right.
At the end of the day, you're like, yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah.
When you're in it, you're like, God, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you done any climbing outside of the U.S.
Yeah. I've climbed a lot in Europe, in Spain, in France, in Switzerland, a little bit in Italy. I've climbed in Mexico and Canada.
All over the world.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite spot that you're like, God, I got to go back there? Or?
I mean, honestly, like I get this question a lot, and it's so hard to pick my favorite spot because
no, I get it.
Every place just is so unique, and I just love it so much when I'm there. There really isn't a place where I've ever been like, yeah, this place is kind of shit. I'll probably never come back.
Right.
Like you have your experiences there, and they're like.
Does some of it play into the culture too? I mean,
exactly.
Like, yeah, you're experiencing that too.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate. I've been able to travel all over the world, and I feel very fortunate for that in my career. But But yeah, it's different. Like people ask me that all the time. Do you have a favorite spot? It's like, yeah, where I live is probably my favorite, but
yeah,
God, I would go back here or here or here or
Yeah.
here. You can just keep naming them, right?
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
And especially once you get up around the Alps, it's such a different type of terrain and just,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's so beautiful. And just being immersed in a different culture is just really fun, and being able to meet a bunch of new people. I just think that is like one of the key elements to growth. And I know that's definitely a privileged thing. But you can do it here in the U.S. too. Like
Sure.
being able to travel to different areas and
There's so much diversity in our own country, right?
Yep. Yep.
Rock climbing tips for somebody that's just wanting to get started in it. Maybe they're listening to the podcast and now they're thinking about trying it. Never been on a rope, never been on belay. What are some of the tips that you would give somebody right out of the gate just so they're doing it safely? Obviously, you don't want to just try to go out there and go to REI and buy your own equipment and just go for it, right?
Yeah, definitely don't do that. There are right and wrong ways to use the equipment. I would suggest it depends on what you want to do. If you want to try it indoors, then definitely go to the gym. Most gyms have, or some gyms, I don't know about now with the pandemic, but some gyms have like intro to climbing classes that'll teach you the basics, like the knot and things like that. But you could also just go to the gym and boulder. Bouldering is where you don't go very high and you don't use a rope, which probably sounds scary if you're listening, but it's not. It's controlled. You have pads underneath you. But that is definitely a way that you could try climbing without having to invest in someone teaching you or taking a course or anything like that. And then if you like it, you could definitely invest in a course. But if you're not interested in bouldering, obviously, like take a course with someone. And if you want to try climbing outside first before going to the gym, because outside is definitely different and a lot more fun, but there are different risks involved. Definitely hiring a guide from somewhere. Just because, like I said, there's more risk. So if you don't know what you're looking for, like you just don't want to be in the wrong hands.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually hire a guide, not like your friend of a friend of a friend, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Especially
exactly.
at that. And I think at the gym, getting a lesson or two probably wouldn't hurt either, because you're probably, if you start picking up bad habits in anything, right? I'm sure, I don't know if this pertains, but I would imagine if you start picking up those bad habits, they're hard to break, right?
Yeah, I think, the beginner's mind is really fresh, so you can definitely pick up good things. But then it's a matter of actually practicing those good habits. So I'm thinking more like how to climb efficiently. Like footwork is like the foundation to that. So you want to have good footwork. Someone can show you what to do, but if you don't practice it, you're only going to resort back to what your intuition tells you to do, which is definitely not the most efficient way to climb for most people. With regards to like belaying and tying in your figure 8 knot, like, there's no wiggle room to do it wrong with those things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. A figure 8 is about the easiest knot you can tie, I think.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah.
For sure. You're a climbing instructor yourself, right? At what level are you teaching? Where do you teach? Could people come take a lesson from you, or?
Yeah. So I've been coaching climbing for 18 years now.
Wow.
So since I was 17, so almost 18 years. I actually do not work at a climbing gym, but I did start my own organization right before the pandemic started. It's called She Sends Collective. So I do remote climbing coaching, but I also am a guide. So if you want to take courses with me through She Sends Collective, you can definitely do that. And I just help bring education around.
Do you have a website that we can drop?
Yeah, shesendscollective.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, so check her out there. I've seen these walls, and I've only seen them once or twice on a post, and I think that there might be one in Boulder, but it's like a treadmill, right? So you get on this wall, and it's got all these different holds, and the wall actually rotates, and you climb It's like speed climbing or something. I don't know. Every time I see somebody doing it, they're going super fast.
Yeah. So you can actually adjust the speed.
Okay.
So you can make it go slower or you can go really fast. It doesn't matter. But that wall is super cool because it's kind of just like a treadmill, except for instead of running on it, you're climbing on it. So you can climb for however many feet you want to.
Wow.
So it's a really great tool if you're working on endurance or something like that.
Awesome. And do you have a gym that you like to frequent a lot? I mean, there's so many around here.
Oh my gosh, there's so many around here. To be
Just
honest, I
pop
go to
around
all
it.
of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I go to all of them just because I think for training purposes, they all have something unique and fun to work with. So I definitely go to all of them.
And I
Nice.
just pulled up you can look at her website.
Oh,
Her
perfect.
on the big screen.
Yeah.
That's an awesome photo too.
Yeah, one of my best friend took it.
Cool. Is that Colorado or?
It is. I think this is Carter Lake.
Don't give away the spot.
It's okay. It's on Mountain Project.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
yeah.
So, at what level do you start teaching? I mean, do you teach youth, adult, advanced, or is it anybody and anybody can come to you? Or
Yeah. So I spent the first part of my coaching career working with kids. Was like the first female youth U.S. team climbing coach. But I don't actually work with kids anymore. So now I keep it 18 and older, primarily women or gender nonconforming people. But I do have a couple guys that I coach as well. I just don't really advertise it. So you have to reach
Sure.
out to me personally if you want something. But yeah, I work with people who have been climbing for a month or two all the way to however many years. I'm not picky. And I love the full spectrum too, especially people who are newer to the sport.
perfect.
Yeah.
As much as you climb and as much as you climbed in the past, do you have anything that you do on a regular basis for strength and conditioning, recovery, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So I definitely do strength training stuff because I want to be a really good athlete. I don't just want to be a specialist at climbing. And if my full body is really strong, so like deadlifts, squats, overhead press, bench press, all of these things.
All the hard stuff.
All of the hard stuff. Then it keeps me safer when I rock climb as far as like it lowers my risk for injury. I say that, I just had shoulder surgery in January.
Oh,
But with that said, like, you can be doing the perfect things and still be injured, which
Sure.
is totally fine. But yeah, I definitely do all of those lifting things. I hike a lot too, just because I enjoy it. But I think that's probably good for my heart.
sure.
And I swim too. So
All good things, right?
yeah, well-rounded, or at least I try to be.
So, how bad was your shoulder injury? Is it brought you off the wall or off rock?
Yeah. So I had my surgery in January at the beginning of the year. I'm 9 weeks post-op now. Last week I got on the climbing wall for the first time since my surgery.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, only for like 10 minutes, but still it was really cool. I don't have full range of motion yet, but it's a slow recovery. But I expect to be climbing outside and back to normal definitely this summer. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
What do you do stretching wise? I mean, we kind of touched on that with my daughter and how flexible she was and how well that made her at the sport.
Yeah.
Is that super important to you? Do you stretch like on a regular basis or?
I wish I could say yes.
Yeah.
But
I don't either.
I don't. And I never really have. I think mobility is more important than flexibility in climbing. Like you need to have strength through whatever your full range of motion is. So that's one of the reasons why I think strength training is so important for rock climbers. As long as you're moving through a full range of motion, like it helps you develop that. Like I definitely do sit on the ground a couple days a week and stretch, but I'm not getting any more flexible.
Right.
But just through like strength training and continuing to climb and just like move my body, like I'm maintaining my range of motion. And I think for a lot of people, well, for everybody, hip mobility is the most important in climbing because you are like stepping up high, and that just gives you a little bit more freedom to choose what feet you want to use. So like squats, as long as you're like squatting down correctly, like that really helps with your mobility and climbing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love the climb clinic posts.
Yes.
That from Dr. Kevin Cow. We've had him on the podcast. That's actually how you and I are connected.
Yep.
And he's like, every day he's doing something new, some sort of new workout that I've never seen that involves like a Yeti cooler, a stretch band, a kettlebell,
Crash
and
pad.
an orange or something, right? Like,
Yes.
He's always got these unique things that I've never seen anybody do. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. You're working something that you never even would have thought of. And I find myself doing some of those at my home gym because the thing I love about his posts too is it's all stuff that most any outdoors person has readily available.
Yes.
And if you have somewhat of a home gym, you can pretty much find anything that he uses right there.
Yeah. Actually, Kevin's my PT for my shoulder.
He is.
Yeah.
What an awesome guy. I can't wait to have him back in here. We learned so much, and the way that his practice is and the stuff that he does is just totally interesting to me.
Yeah. No, I hands down will say he's one of the best PTs I've ever had the privilege of working with because he is so really great at creating these exercises and things that you can do from home, from things that even if you don't have them will not cost you a lot to get. Like, you don't need a Yeti cooler, obviously. You can use whatever cooler you want. And the bands that he uses are very inexpensive. You know, I don't know. He's a genius at coming up with things to do.
He's got a killer mustache, too. I don't know how he gets that so perfect.
You know, it's crazy because I've not seen it in person.
Oh, really?
I've only seen it cut, like, he always has a mask on, because of the pandemic. So when I first saw his mustache through Instagram, I was like, no way. And for the first few visits I had with him, I would like see him, and be like, you have a mustache under there.
Right.
I know it, but I can't tell.
No, it's funny because we had him in here and we do the podcast with no masks because we're social distancing.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at us, people.
Yeah.
But it was funny. He took it off and I was like, that is one nice mustache, man. He looked like a cop.
Yeah, totally.
There's the cop mustache for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
More like the sheriff, I guess.
Definitely the sheriff.
Yeah.
Definitely the sheriff.
No, he's a great guy, though. Awesome guy, and really enjoyed having him in. And I actually need to go see him just for some personal stuff. So
You should.
yeah,
I've been recommending
but
so
it's
many
the
people.
Climb Clinic, right?
The Climb Clinic.
Okay, cool. Yeah, follow that on Instagram. Awesome guy.
Very creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% creative. Yeah. The guy is all over it. What do you love most about climbing? I think I've kind of asked this already, but like, is there something that just the reason why you do it?
Yeah. The thing that I love most about climbing, aside from sharing my knowledge with this community, is really like when I'm climbing for myself, like you said earlier, like you don't worry about like the mortgage and all of these other things. It's just like the only thing that gets me able to feel the flow, right? Or like get into that flow.
Get in the
mind
groove,
state.
yeah.
Yeah, like
All the
nothing,
cliche sayings, right?
yeah, like nothing else is going on in my head. Like I'm totally disconnected, but connected at the same time. And yeah, it just like helps me make sense of kind of the chaotic world that we live in. And then also like I grew up climbing, right? So it kind of was this might be weird to say, but it was kind of my parent. Like it has taught me so many life lessons and has taught me how to navigate situations that maybe I didn't experience directly through climbing, but I can apply to these different areas of my life. And God, I mean, I don't know.
That's deep.
Yeah, it's so deep. So deep. But it's literally my passion, and like.
It's awesome that you've been able to make a career out of it, right? Because I think a lot of people, we were kind of talking about this before the podcast, you just get struck in this rut. Like, okay, I get in my car, I drive to Starbucks, I get my drink, I go sit at my desk, I get my work done, I go home, I cook dinner.
Yeah.
I watch a TV program and then I go to bed or whatever that is, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that routine. And with something like yours that's a passion and a career path for you, right? Do you feel that in any way that that you're stuck in a rut with rock climbing or what you do now, or do you not have that feeling?
No, I don't. And to be honest, I never really wanted climbing to be my career per se. Like I very much, like I said, I started coaching at a young age.
Sure.
Did really cool stuff throughout my like younger coaching career, but definitely was like, no, like coaching is not going to be my career. Climbing is not going to be my career. Like I'm going to go into medicine. I'm going to do all these different things. And like, yes, I really wanted it, but I couldn't turn away from climbing. And I tried so hard. Like I tried so hard. I applied to PA school.
Isn't that funny that like the one thing you love, you're trying to get away from sometimes?
Well, it's really interesting. And to be honest, I'm still trying to make sense of it.
Sure.
But, I started my organization last February. And even at that point, I was like, oh, I'm starting it for sure. And we're doing this. But I still might get into PA school. So I'm still waiting out for that, right?
Sure.
And then I didn't get in, which I think definitely was like the universe telling me, Chelsea, shut the fuck up and just like do what you're doing because you're really good at it, and passionate about it. And then it occurred to me that over time, it was like everything that I was looking for in medicine is what I already have. I just need to foster it more and, find whatever I am unique at teaching and kind of go from there. And then here we are. And it's just like, so now I definitely don't feel like I'm in a rut. I definitely every week am thankful for like having the opportunity to make climbing my career, not just as a professional athlete, but especially as a coach and someone who's trying to like really give forward to the community.
That's great. I find myself like with the podcast, for example, I started it during the pandemic, or this one in particular. It was like, I need something past the time, right? Like work is dead. It's dry. Like literally all I was doing was cold calling, former clients that I've had in the entertainment industry, and nobody was doing anything. So it was more like just calling and checking up on them. Well, after like a week went by, I was like, I had called everybody in my contact list. And I checked in on everybody, and they were all doing good. They were like, yeah, I'm just at home, weathering the storm, like same old. And a lot of complaining, whatever. But it's funny. So I just kind of fell into this, and I started having a ton of fun with it, which was super awesome, right?
Yeah.
And I found myself the other day, because of what it's turned into, and now we have sponsorship, and now I have all this responsibility with it, and now we got all these guests coming to us, and like people that want to be on the show, and I'm trying to please everybody. I found myself like complaining and like dreading it the other day. And I was like, wait a minute. Whoa. It happened for like 2 seconds. And I was like, first of all, I don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
This is my own creation. I've created my own monster. Yeah. So let's just handle it. Right. So it was kind of funny. Like, it's funny how you just get so head down sometimes that you're like, for a moment there, I was like, God, this really sucks. It was like maybe a 2 or 3 hour period. And then luckily I caught myself out of it. Like, why am I stressing about this?
Yeah.
No, I created all this myself. So.
Same. Like 2 weeks ago, I was like, God, I haven't had a day off and now I don't even know how long.
Right.
And like stressed out. And then I was like, wait a minute, stop it, Chelsea. You're not working in a medical clinic or a hospital.
Sure.
You are literally living your passion. You've created something that is really meaningful for you and the community. And like, no one's bossing you around.
Yeah,
take
exactly.
a deep breath. You're good.
Yeah. Just take a step back every once in a while and look at it, right? Or that's what I got to do personally sometimes.
No, totally.
But outside of climbing, I'm sure you have hobbies, right? You got an awesome dog.
Yeah.
Bean?
3 of them. Bean. Franny Bean.
Franny Bean. Okay, cool.
Yeah. We actually have 3 dogs. Pit Bull. This is like a healer mix.
Yeah.
And then I have Puma. She's my little babe. She's been with me for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Yep. She's 11.
And they all get along, all those different breeds in one house? I mean, no fighting, nothing like that? Really?
The sassiest one is Puma.
Yeah.
Which if
always
any of my
dogs.
friends are listening to this, they know, like, Puma's a little sassy thing. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I love to hike. So that's definitely a hobby of mine. which is funny because I hated hiking as a kid.
Yeah.
I was like, I won't go to any crag that I have to hike to. Fuck that.
Sure. No, as a kid, I was always, if we were hiking, we were doing something. We were going someplace. We were going to a fishing spot. We were, going camping or backpacking or whatever, right? It was never hiking.
Yeah.
If we were just going to go for a hike, I wasn't going to go.
Yeah. I'm that person now that I just go for a hike.
Right.
But I go for a hike because I get to experience like the beautiful places in Colorado where there's not a whole lot of people. And it's just like moments of silence that I can find outside of climbing.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
You said you swim. Are you into water sports at all? Stand-up paddle or anything like that? Or
I've only done it a couple times and I loved it. I don't have one.
Oh, you should get one.
I want
They're
to.
super cheap now.
Yeah, I
They
figured.
used to not be affordable, but that's like one of my therapies. I love just being on the water and it's awesome.
Yeah.
You get that same sort of silence.
Yeah.
Especially, I have some inflatables, so we'll backpack those into some high mountain lakes sometimes.
That's what I was
some
going to
alpine
say.
lakes.
That's what I
Super
want to
cool.
do. Like Chasm Lake or like
it's so
any
awesome.
of the lakes up high.
I fly fish off of mine.
Ooh, cool.
It's even better, yeah.
Nice.
So
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to do for sure.
perfect. You should totally do it this summer. Let me know and I'll set you straight. Actually, our friends down at Icelandic Skis, they do this awesome artwork on their skis. I don't know if you're familiar with the company.
No.
The founder's from right here in Evergreen.
Cool.
Super awesome guy. We've had him on the podcast. But I'm probably going to spend my stimulus relief check or whatever just came on one of their paddle boards, more than likely.
Nice. I love it.
If we can get one. But they have an artist that's actually from this area too. And he does, check out Icelandic Skis. They do just awesome artwork all over them and cool stuff. It's a company, I wouldn't say it's similar to Never Summer, but they have like that level of art skill behind it. It's super cool. And now they're doing stand-up paddle boards too. So
Ooh.
super cool.
That's fun.
So what's next for you? I mean, are you working on any sort of projects? You have your climbing school. Would you call it a school or?
I'd call it more of an organization.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's definitely like I do remote climbing coaching, but one of the main focuses is bringing women together and providing really good education for them so that they feel empowered and safe to be climbing themselves. So that is definitely still a project, growing it to be what I want. Like I'm about to launch an ambassador program because I don't just want to be here in Colorado. I want to kind of spread the heart of She Sends Collective, I guess, throughout the country. I'm going to be hosting my first retreats this summer, so definitely I'm trying to like figure that out. And then starting a nonprofit called the Climbers Fund, which She Sends Collective will feed. And that nonprofit will go towards providing financial assistance for the community to get help with their disordered eating recovery, which can be really expensive. And disordered eating is like really prevalent in our sport. So that's, totally something we haven't talked about, but something that's really important.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit.
Sure.
And I got to ask this, just to sidebar a little bit.
Yeah.
We recorded a podcast with Cheyenne Orvis, fly fishing, and she's doing a similar thing, but in the fly fishing industry, helping empower women in fly fishing because there's a lot of intimidation that happens in that industry. Do you find that in rock climbing that women are intimidated when they go into a climbing gym or go into a climbing store to buy gear or anything like that? I mean, anything's intimidating. I'm a 300-pound guy, 280 pounds, but let's just chalk it up to 300. When I walk into a fly fishing shop, sometimes I'm intimidated because I don't know as much as those guys do. Or rock climbing, I totally would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. And I think some of that stems from the fact that historically climbing has been very male-dominated. So like when I grew up climbing, I didn't have any female partners, really. There was a couple other girls on the youth climbing team, but like definitely weren't as like in it as I was. But we'd go to the gym and like it would be all men, right, for the most part. That's definitely changed. But still, I think it's really intimidating because, I mean, I know that not all men are like this, obviously.
Sure.
But, like, I'll go to the gym, for example, and I'll start working on a boulder problem that I am falling on. So it's hard for me. And a dude will see me and he's like, oh, well, you know, he doesn't say this, but I'm imagining this is what he's thinking. I was like, oh, she's falling on that. I can do that. And he'll just like snake right in front of me and get on it. And you can tell just like the air that he's giving off that like he just wants to show off.
Is there some arrogance in your industry?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like putting voice to the arrogance out there. But yeah, so like that happens to me, right? And I'm not saying everybody knows me, and I'm definitely not saying like I'm the best climber out there, because I'm definitely not. But imagine like, so I've been in the industry for a long time. So when that happens to me, it doesn't really affect me. It kind of makes me laugh, actually. I'm like, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
But imagine that happening to someone who's newer to climbing, right? And like, let's say the dude does do something, like does the move that this girl is trying. Like that's kind of like a burn, especially when you come off being all arrogant. So it's just, I think a lot of women struggle with that. And then, you know, kind of we get mansplained a lot, you know, like,
Sure.
oh, well, you should just unsolicitedly put it that way, right? And that can be really hard for women. Also, just going into a climbing gym, especially in this area where we have a really high population of very strong people, doesn't matter what gender you are. But as a beginner walking in, you know, it can be intimidating to not be as strong. And then you can feel that you're being judged or something, which they're not.
Sure.
But in your head, you're like, I totally am. Like,
I think that happens in any sport. I mean,
it totally does. Yeah.
I'm new to jiu-jitsu. I come from a wrestling background, so I fell right into that pretty good, and I'm strong enough to kind of hold my own, but that doesn't mean that a 125-pound male will just choke me out in a split second, right?
Yeah.
So there's different skill sets and different levels. The thing I love about jiu-jitsu is you can't lie about how good you are. It's all out on the mat, right? And
Yeah.
I would imagine rock climbing is kind of the same way. But
My boyfriend does jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I can't wait to get back to it. I've taken a hitus,
Yeah.
and I'm really going to suck at it when I go back. They're probably going to take my belt away. My white belt, they're going to take away. They're just going to be like, you can't even have a belt right now. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think that there's intimidation on either side of it, but I can only imagine as a woman going into a jiu-jitsu class and have it being all males. I'm sure it's even twice as bad.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And then, you know, the other thing too is not everybody, but a lot of women do start climbing with potentially their male partner. And they just end up relying on them. I mean, I'm totally guilty of that too. Like, I have totally done that, right? Where I'm like, yeah, I'll rely on you and whatever. But I also knew what I was looking for. And a lot of these other people don't have that, like, foundation of education. So my goal is just to help these women feel more comfortable. When women climb with women, it's a totally different vibe than if it's mixed gender.
Okay.
You know, and I can't really put my finger on it. I think that everybody's just able to...
Well, it's weird because Cheyenne explained the same exact thing that you're explaining, but in the fly fishing industry.
Sure.
And funny enough, she mentioned that she was just getting into rock climbing. So maybe you guys should connect.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get it. And I think it's great what you girls are doing, gals, women, however that plays out, right? I think it's awesome. And I think that you guys should keep doing it.
Yeah.
Do you see children, like bringing children into that a little bit too? Because I think children get the same sort of intimidation sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. But the thing with children is, especially around here, there's tons of youth teams that they can get on. Sure. And then they're guided by coaches. They have peers going through the same thing, and they're all practicing together. So it's like a little bit easier. It is a little bit easier for children because of that versus adults. Like, there's no adult climbing team or, like, you know, anything like that. There's, like, meetups, but even still, like, it can have, like, this. You're not really
makes sense
guided.
because there's a lot more, like, kids class. You can go take kids rock climb. I mean, that's how my kids started, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would know how to belay them, and that's about it. But.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, reach for that rock to the left.
Totally.
The coach is like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, that's awesome. What about, have you ever thought about, like, there's a lot of people that maybe would like to get into the sport, but maybe they can't afford to, or they're underprivileged or something like that. Have you ever thought about going down that road a little bit too and trying to help those people out?
Yep. So She Sins Collective does like outdoor guiding programs and clinics. So each one of those programs has a standard rate, and people can choose to pay a percentage of that standard rate if that standard rate's too much. So they can pay as little as 25% of that standard rate. If that is still too much for people, I just say reach out to me directly and ask, and we will certainly work things out. Like, that is one of my biggest missions with She Sins Collective and the Climbers Fund, is to help break down those financial barriers for the community. Because like I said earlier, it's like one of the fastest growing sports. And yeah, it's not gymnastics where it's like super highly expensive, but on the other side, it's definitely getting there, and it is. And there's still like these huge financial barriers. So yes, absolutely.
Perfect. And is your nonprofit up now? If people wanted to donate, can they donate to your website or something like that? Maybe they're not into rock climbing, but maybe they want to help with it?
Yeah, so the nonprofit does not have 501c3 status quite yet. It will soon. If you want to donate, the only place to do it is through She Sins Collective's Venmo. And that's totally up to you, obviously. Like, I know that's not going to be tax deductible or anything, but it is there for
Perfect.
people.
That's great. Well, I highly urge people to follow you on Instagram, and I encourage people to check out what you got going on, especially if you're a female and wanting to get into rock climbing. And I'd love to send my daughter to one of these events if she'd like to. Do you do outdoor events or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So the outdoor group clinics are the clinics where you can pay a certain percentage of the standard rate and stuff.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming in. Did we miss anything? You do a lot of these podcasts. Do you have any questions? It's like, God, I wish they would have asked me about this.
Honestly, I mean, we could probably keep talking for way more hours. So no, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just end it on that note.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, that's what we do. We do them
Totally.
short and sweet, but we're going to do more of them. So we'd love to have you back. It's been awesome having you in here. But before we let you go, is there a specific spot where you want people to follow you? Do you have a Twitter, Instagram? Drop your website again.
Yeah, you can follow me on my personal Instagram, Chelsea Nicole Rude. And then you can also follow She Sins Collective's Instagram, which is SheSins_collective. There's a lot of resources on both pages for like climbing technique, and She Sins Collective specifically for, some motivation and stuff like that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We'll put all the links. If you go to the show notes, wherever you're listening to this, or on YouTube, we'll put links to all that stuff in the bios or in the show description. So
cool.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much for coming in. This has been a long time coming. I appreciate you making the trip.
No,
and
awesome.
Actually not being outside on such a beautiful day. It's so nice out there right
so
now.
Nice. But I was already outside and I'm sunburnt, and it's like we need to chill now.
Right on. Well, thank you again. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Marissa, you okay back there? All right. Awesome. I'll catch you on the next.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com. We wanted to let you know that the Mountainside Podcast is now available on Patreon. If you'd like access to bonus footage, behind-the-scenes content, ad-free listening, and much more, simply find the link in our bio or visit patreon.com/themountainside.